So there's no growth hormone now. IGF-1's usually off. LH is dropped.
Yeah.
Testosterone might be within the range, but man, you have to understand when they do ranges on labs, they're talking about populations ranges for the average American. And they're 3 standard deviations away or 2 standard deviations away from the mean. If you understand anything about statistics, 2 standard deviations is really far. That means like I could be at a, if we're talking like a female, I could be at 2 testosterone or I could be at a 58 and I'm in the normal range.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's why functional is an optimal range in the middle.
What's an optimal range for a female and a male, free testosterone and total T?
So if we're talking about, for total testosterone, we like to see our females that are particularly athletes, we would hope that they would be, between 40 and 60. For the average individual, and this is total, by the way. For the average individual, you're probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from, we'd like to see at least 20 to 40, right? Females, sorry, we're still with females. So if males, now again, this, if we're just talking in general to feel good, you want to be somewhere, so the range is somewhere, the range medically is like 200 to 1,000, right? The standard range. Can you imagine?
That's a big range.
Like when I was my testosterone came back at like 280 and my doctor was like, that's fine.
Good, yeah.
Hey, you're good.
Of course.
And I felt miserable, right? I'm like, bro, I feel like I'm gonna die. You're telling me this is okay?
Yeah. That's crazy.
So, but for a male, you're usually good just to be general in the optimal range of anywhere between 500 to 1,000. But if we want you really primed, we'd love you anywhere between 800 and 1,200.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and I think people understanding that will help them understand that you can be in range, but you're not in your range, your biological range. You're in the population range, but what's the standard deviation to your hormone profile? That's why it's really good early on to take one of these labs so that you know your ranges early, that's particular to you, so then you have data later to compare it to, rather than a whole population.
Makes sense.
I want to know my statistical range, and then I can tell where I feel best at, right? And that's probably would be my suggestion.
Let's take a step back, because I do want to talk about weight cutting, right? And that's like one major thing in fight sports, even in any combat sport, really. When somebody has to go through a hard weight cut, what does that do to metabolism? What did that do to the hormones and things of that nature in the long term and also short term?
Yeah. Weight cutting is probably singularly the number, how you train too. How you train, probably not even the fights, right? It's probably really in training. How you're training, right? Like how hard are you sparring?
Yeah.
How many days a week? And then the other one is, how are you controlling energy management, controlling your weight in and out of your camps, and not taking too many really, really aggressive. So it's the same thing. This is why bodybuilding has such because that's where I really got a big was a lot of females' metabolisms are getting harder and harder to cut. And I know you've probably seen this with certain women.
Yeah.
And I feel for them because I understand that this happens and it's some of it that's not in their control. Men can get away with a little bit more for longer, and they usually do, which is why a lot of MMA guys, their diets are way out of pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cutting them. Some guys trying to cut by just eating like 17 oranges a day, and then the next guy's only eating protein. It's like they're all over the place, right?
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
It's like, hey,
and then they binge afterwards.
Then they binge afterwards, right? So it's like, hey, man, and this is how they would explain it to me. It's like someone's trying to kill me in there, and I'm trying to figure out how to kill someone else. I'm not as worried about like what my meal is going to be after I do that. And it's like, it's a coming of age story where eventually, and you hear it with most guys when they really start getting higher levels, they really go, oh, I really should start looking at this. And then they start noticing the differences over time.
Definitely.
It's part of that growth as a professional, right? But at first it's like cheeseburgers or whatever I get the calories in.
Yeah. I mean, Chael Sonnen used to drink a Coca-Cola right after weigh-ins on the scale, like after he got off the scale.
Yeah.
It's just, guys like Dustin Poirier and even like Michael Chandler, these guys are really dialed in with their nutrition, right?
Right.
Because they know they need to,
Yep.
and their understanding of the health markers that they have, you know, and especially from the longevity of the sport and just being in there. But it wasn't always like that. It
wasn't.
Guys were just like, all right, let's get in the sauna, let's get in the hot bath, make sure that we are just getting the water off.
Yep.
Go from there, and they're not even taking into account the diet leading up to the actual weight cut.
What would you say the pounds is? Because this is where, and then we'll talk about these weight cuts. Because this is where, when we looked at these BIA scores, remember, let's go back to this. And we looked at this phase angle score. And what you're looking at is a tissue integrity score. So if you send a frequency through a tissue, based on its resistance and reactance, you can almost tell the thickness of its integrity. Like the fatty acid membranes that tie it together. Okay. When you take cells in that environment and you deplete really deep, and then you're starving yourself and you're having to cut a lot of weight in a very short period of time, we see phase angles drop, the integrity drop, and then it not fully come back, meaning that you lose about 2 to 5% of your integrity on a cellular level. So think about like the fascia that holds you together, right?
Yeah.
Think about cellular integrity. Think about organ integrity. Think about just everything. It takes such a hard, and again, a little bit of stress is good.
Sure. Yeah.
Like my brother used to talk about, it's like there's certain times he'd fight, 205 or he'd fight 185. He's like, I like that weight cut because mentally it puts me in the preparation for pain. So there's a good amount of stress in some of the cut, right?
Yeah. There's a term we use is like the first fight and the second fight. First fight is the weight, right? Getting on the scale and getting your weight off. That's the first fight done, and that's almost usually harder than the actual fight itself.
Yeah.
So.
Right, that war with yourself. And so, but then, and so I used to keep, I like to see 12 to 15 max, if in a beautiful world.
Yeah. 12 to 15 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a beautiful world, and hopefully, fight week we're 10 away.
It's about right.
Right.
It's about right. Yeah.
That's what I would like to see. It depends on different sizes. Now, the bigger that you get, the greater that number can be.
Yeah. Well, if you look at like, for me, I cut to 155 and I always dieted down. So I always stayed around 20% of scale weight all year round. And because of the fact that you may be fighting multiple times, or you may get called up on a short notice fight, so you have to be ready. So we do like the guys to be around 20% of scale weight, and then from there, still eating healthy, still keeping their body fat down, under like 12%. We don't want them going lower than, I've seen guys, like I got a kid named Tyler Ray. He's like the shredded, like the kid looks like Tarzan, but he's probably, when he gets down to 185, he used to fight at 170. He was under 6% body fat easily, maybe even 4. He looked like he could step on a bodybuilding stage. Yeah. That's not healthy. Or I wouldn't say it's not healthy, but it's not optimal.
No, it's not optimal
for fighting. Right?
We don't see that, and we don't see it as being optimal for health to get that shredded. It's the same, again, the principle for bodybuilding is the same. The more shredded that you seem to stay, the less room that you have, and if you're dropping even more and then you're staying closer to that. Now, some people have a genetic propensity, don't get me wrong, but if they're staying really lean all year round, those are the people that have more problems usually later, because they're not creating the right amount of variance. But the people that go way up and way down and way up and way down, their careers are always shorter. They develop inflammatory conditions. There's a thing called hormone sensitivity, and this is one of the things that we focus on. There's a level of your hormones. So in a communication, what is a hormone? It's a message. There's 2 parts to that. There's the messenger, right? And there's the listener, the receiver, right? So if I deliver a message, let's say the strength of my voice is the level. How high is the message? But your ability to hear it is even more important. And it's called hormone sensitivity. So we had a conversation off camera. We were talking about coffee, right? And we got to that place where we went, because we're obsessives, right? So like, there's a bit of addict in us, right? And you can get to so much coffee that you get to a certain point in the coffee where you could go to bed immediately. Now, what is that? Let me teach you the principle. I drank the coffee. It's going to stimulate catecholamines and cortisol. It's still doing that. So then why could I go to bed right away? Because what happens is you get insensitive, like your cell receptors can't take any more hormone in, or you have less of them because of your overexposure. So maybe you can experience this being married for a long time. Maybe the missus has a superpower at not hearing you.
Yeah, most likely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you can get baby crying, noises in the room.
Oh, yeah.
You can get insensitive to those things.
Yeah.
A cell gets desensitized to a message.
You know what? I don't mean to come off topic, but that sounds similar to like getting desensitized to like your phone and like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
watching things on the phone, and then from there, like, cause I have a partner of mine, my business partner, and like I'm calling him out, Chris. You know what I'm talking about. But like, you know, when you get in the car and you don't put your seatbelt on, it starts to ring, right? And I put my seatbelt on. He didn't put his seatbelt on. That's another red flag right there, Chris. You should put your seatbelt on. But the thing, it kept ringing. And I go, bro, do you know what here? He's like, oh, I didn't even pay attention to that.
That's it.
And he go, well, that's how I know you don't put your damn seatbelt on, because it's desensitized. But you get what I'm saying?
You got it. So this is important because, okay, so that means that if I overdo something, why periodization matters, I become less sensitive to it.
It's a law of accommodation.
Yeah. You got it. So then I'm not going to respond to it the way that it should. It's not hitting the way that it should.
For sure.
That's in energy systems. That's in training. See where I'm going with this? It's everywhere. We don't think about it in hormones though, and we should, because that's what I'm worried about. If you're very sensitive to your hormones, anything I do to you is going to make me look like I'm the best in the world because you're so sensitive and you respond. You know, you get someone in new for the first time, you're going to do that one thing that you like to do with that client. But this is about to work, baby. You got that ace, right? You already know. But if you go right back to it or you stay to it too long, it don't work. It don't hit the same.
It's funny because they're like, we always do something different. I'm like, I know. That's the point.
That's the point.
Got to constantly vary.
Right. Now, there's always strategy behind it. It's not randomness.
No, not true randomness.
I think most trainers start with that. The variety is actually random.
Oh, no.
And then variety becomes strategy.
There's a strategy in variety. If you do it the right way. You know, that's why conjugate for me has been so vital when it comes down to programming.
That's right.
Right. But there is always a strategy. There's always tactics that's involved in the strategy, but it may seem to the outside world or from the naked eye or to the uninitiated that it is random, but it's really not. It's actually very structured. It's just, I put it in the right place at the right time. Yeah.
I think, again, they talk about adaptions. The higher the intensity gets, the quicker the adaption. So like if you look at HIIT cardio, for example, your body, you'll maximize the number of mitochondria in that muscle probably at 4 to 5 weeks. But if you do something slow, okay, you can probably, and you do the same stuff, you can do over 8 to 12 weeks. So I'm imagining, because I've seen some of your stuff too, a little bit, some of your work, you're hitting certain energy systems, you're hitting certain groups, but you're doing it, hitting different variety in a strategy over some time. And that's when you get to high level. That's the high level stuff right there. But just so people know, you come to these adaptions. So with the hormones, so again with the coffee, pounding. Then you get to the point where you don't feel anything. That's called burnout. I can't feel if it's high. I can't feel if it's low. When you can't feel cortisol, you feel like you're gonna die. And I'm sure many athletes out there, you're like, do I got cancer? Like, because you're like, you don't know why you feel the way that you do. And then what you end up having to do is you crash, you burn out, and then its sensitivity comes back. And
what's the feeling that you feel? I know what it feels like because I had it when we were talking about it. But like, it's like and you could a little bit explain it a little bit deeper. But like, I always felt like when I woke up, I was dead tired, and then I couldn't go to sleep at night. Right. So I would be up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I would try to have to wake up at like 5 a.m. And like, obviously I was tired, but I was also like, I couldn't get past it, and I kept slamming energy drinks and coffees and things like that. Like I said, I was doing like 2 grams a day. You know, it was crazy. To that point.
I like to talk about it in terms of there's really 3 ways of looking at this. One is general fatigue. So I want you to think of fatigue as I just worked through a hard day and I've exhausted myself. We all can understand what fatigue is, right? But then you get into a couple different stages where when you go past that from fatigue, right, and you start talking about like exhaustion and mental exhaustion, where it's like this. It's like in my brain, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Like you feel like you don't have any energy. Mentally, physically, it feels that from you. It's different. It's a different energy, right? That mental exhaustion, right, is really starting to get into burnout. And then you'll start feeling it in endurance issues. So it's like I start doing something and then I got nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so those two start to combine. The mental exhaustion, right? And the endurance issues. And that's different than just being exhausted from work, right? There's just from fatigue, right? Fatigue and exhaustion are not the same thing. And so I try to explain it is that you feel like a zombie, brain fogged. You're usually swollen. You'll just kind of notice you're a little swollen, and you'll notice that you have no get up. It's your initiation's gone. So you'll be in your head, get up, get up, get up, and then finally get up. Yeah. Right? And then you'll start to notice that like you'll stay up at night. You can't go. You then can't wake up in the morning. Yeah. You'll notice again your cognition is off. You can't make decisions as quickly. Yeah. There's more confusion. You're not getting things the way that you used to. So someone shows you a move or someone shows you something at work or in business or whatever. Yep. And you're like, can you show me that again? Because I didn't get that. That all starts to come together. And then usually if it continues, you start getting gut issues. Then you'll just start noticing that your body, you're not getting the pumps in the gym that you used to. Your body's not responding, it's not recovering the same way. When it turns from acute to chronic, that's when you start getting into those issues. And that's what coaches got to see, because that's when a coach has to step in. Yeah. A little bit of temporary adrenal fatigue, really good sleep, a little bit of reversing your training, you can come right back really strong. But when it turns into chronic, now you're usually going to need some support because you're feeling there's no shake in it.
What's the protocol or intervention that you use when you get shut down like that?
The simplest solution, because remember I talked about that phase angle and like the salinity of your cells, hydration status of your cells. When cortisol is really high or you're adrenal fatigued, your body's not staying hydrated intracellularly. We can see it. So that's why you won't feel the same. You'll feel. I'm sorry, is this thing still going off here? It's been going off the whole damn time. It's like, anyway, but so I like to flush them. So I'm gonna do what's called, I developed a proprietary, because that's what I did. I created this 4F method that we teach across the country, right? Yeah. One of the methods I teach is a cortisol reset. I can teach, I'll give you a free, I'll give everyone a hookup.
Right.
When you don't feel right, when you're tired, you're like, what is going on with me? You don't know why a lot of times, right? You don't know where it's coming from, right? Could it be hydration? Did I not sleep enough? Has my nutrition been off? Am I worried too much about tomorrow, or have I been fearing something in the past? What is going on with me that I feel like this? Yeah. I've got a 2-day rocket ship that'll usually get about 80% of people out of there. It's called the cortisol reset. Okay. So I designed a product called Cortis, right? It will flush a lot of your hormones and quick resensitize you really fast.
I use that actually.
Yeah. Because so many people are like my clients, they're grinding. And I was trying to figure out how can I quick know if this is a temporary problem or a real problem. Yeah. So I was like, all right. So I developed a product and I developed a method. So we have them do a quick 2-gallon challenge. We can do it for 2 days. Pound water, hit the Cortis, sleep an extra hour. It's gonna flush you. It's gonna flush your hormones. It's gonna help resensitize you, balance things out. And if that doesn't shake it, and then again, on women, you can see it easier because they'll be real. A lot of times women just really will start swelling when they train. Yeah. Or they might lose their cycle. So watching women's cycles is huge because that's an indicator that problems are coming. If they lose their cycle.
Oh man, that happens a lot with the fighters.
Yes. So that's why there's a lot of natural things you can do that can keep their cycle or maintain them so when it comes back, it's easy and it comes back and forth and it doesn't cause so much problems. So that's a whole nother podcast. We can do whatever. Yeah. So, but what I do is if you keep cortisol stable, it'll keep their other hormones stable because cortisol is at the top with like thyroid hormone, adrenal hormone, pituitary hormone. They are the regulator. They're the thermostat of all your other hormones. So testosterone and progesterone and the rest of them. If I keep this stable and manage my stress, both emotional, chemical, and physical, so not drinking a bunch of alcohol, I'm not engaging in bad relationships and about a worry and fear, and I'm using appropriate training management, then everything else will hold stable.
Yeah.
One of these gets way too off and you can't quick fix it, then everything will cascade down. That's what happens. So I developed a cortisol reset because I'm trying to protect cortisol. So every 2 weeks, usually every other weekend, I'll make my athletes, depending on what they're doing, do a cortisol reset. So they'll take 2 Cortis every 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours. They're increasing their water to either 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons. They're getting 1 extra hour of sleep, and then we turn their training down by 50%.
Yeah, it's big. That's hard too with the people I
But
work
switch
with.
energy systems. So like, I'll take you, if I've got you doing, I'll just put you on running. If you're doing, let's say right now you're doing a lot of variable MMA moves, I'm gonna switch you to mild intensity, steady state running.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I like to take people that are in steady state, move them into, I love functional movement. So I love kettle. I love maybe TRX. Or if you're somebody that was lifting a lot, if you're doing a lot of high rep, high volume, I'm gonna move you to isometric.
Okay.
And, right?
Less muscle damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Isometric or AMPK, where it's like mind muscle, so it's real slow. You're not going to failure. You're focused on clench and peak release, right? Right. And I'll just have you work that energy system. We call that periodization. We teach that at the university with AMPK training. And Alan Kress is one of the best at it, man. He's incredible.
Shout out to Alan.
Yeah, Alan's amazing. So
100%.
he really teaches that well. And so I don't have to, I can turn it down, switch energy systems and go right back. And you're going to feel like $1 million. Yeah. And then you'll usually perform better within the first week of going, by the end of the first week, you'll usually perform better.
Gotcha.
You know, and so that's a perfect example because you just resensitized yourself again.
Yeah, the thing with me would be having the fighter and all of the coaches in the entire team understand that, which is very hard, especially MMA coaches. But that's another podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're looking at it, you go, well, I have to pull them back. And that's where you have to develop a relationship with the athlete, with that person, to get them to trust in your judgment and then trust the things that you do with them are going to get them better over time, as opposed to, this short form of performance that they may get, but you're digging a deeper hole. So that's good. I think education from what you guys do is truly important. I think a lot of fighters and a lot of other coaches need to understand that, especially if they're working with performance athletes at that high level that are pushing their body, their mental capabilities to another level to get them to where they want to be. But this is something that isn't really talked about, that needs to be talked about because it's at a deeper level rather than, just getting somebody stronger or more powerful, more conditioned. We have to look inside and look at their physiology in order for us to get true benefit. And also from there, after they're done, they have a longer life expectancy.
Well, some easy wins. Let's talk about MMA. Weight cuts do not have to get harder. I know as you get older, okay, your body tends to stay at higher and higher body weights. So athletes may decide to move up, okay? I understand that. But if you're conscious of your weight cut early on, you can then maintain a modified weight much easier and slide right back into it. The way you cut will slow down your metabolism. And then, every athlete talks a lot about these weight cuts are getting harder and harder. But if you start earlier with the right weight cuts, it doesn't get harder. So if you diet too aggressively and then come back out too high, it causes, again, adaptation, a maladaptation, where your body's gonna then fight you because it's thinking survival. Okay? And it does create hormone insensitivity a little bit with leptin and insulin, which are how fat burning hormones leptin. So your weight cuts can stay closer to the same. Now again, age and how low was your weight and how many years in the sport, that will change that a little bit, but it doesn't have to get harder. Your ability on your peak moments to be able to perform at your best, that can be greatly improved using functional tools, greatly improved. Your energy, your endurance, everything can be optimized to improve if you worked on things like, you wouldn't think about it, but like gut and the endocrine system. There are so many things there that you can do that actually will optimize focus, attention, endurance throughout, stress management, right? That's another easy area. recovery from injury or prevention of injury, adequate nutrition, as I just told you before, and load management will keep a cell's integrity higher, right? So you've got the extracellular matrix that holds you together. So if you want to prevent injury or you want to speed your recovery up, it is imperative. These are simple areas, because I think one of the things that holds people back more than anything is their ability to not continue to develop a skill because of injury.
Absolutely.
Right? So you can run 1,000 miles an hour and pass everybody up, then get injured, and then again, tortoise of the hare.
And you see that with a lot of athletes. Like, they're just not the same coming back from different injuries, especially like ACL tears or anything. You know, even with concussions, it's something to be mindful of. My coach told me, like, Dean Thomas, he told me, like, when I retired, it was like, yo, he said, if it was your knee or it was your back or something, like, we could work around it, but it's your brain. You can't really work around that. And it's true, because not only are you, not there mentally, but also you can take it into an emotional standpoint where it's like, I don't want to get hit in the head again, because I don't know how much damage is really going on in there. And so your ability to be a killer, like to actually be out and be aggressive, diminishes, because you have this thing in the back of your mind, like, oh, if I get touched again, I might lose consciousness. And that could go for anything. So that's very important. What people have to understand is that once you start
your punching speed, or maybe your power, or right, it starts to kind of go a little bit.
Reaction time.
Reaction time. I don't know if you listen to any of Firas Zahabi's training style.
That's the homie.
Okay, right.
That's my guy.
And what does he talk about? He's like, you should never really be sore.
For sure,
Right, and
he's 100% accurate. He's one of those coaches that gets it.
Yeah.
And he's one of those coaches that I would love to have worked with one of his athletes.
Yeah.
I actually worked with Kevin Lee for a long time. He's worked with him.
Yep.
And when you have a skills coach that understands performance on that level, like from a physical standpoint, it's so much better. It's an easier process to handle. When you got guys that don't understand the actual physiology, the biomechanics, fatigue management, that's an issue. But Firas does have a good approach.
And what he talks a lot about is the consistency, applying just enough load for slow improvement, but not maxing yourself out, fatiguing yourself so you're weaker the next day. Because you're creating a weakness that can lead to integrity issues. And that I on a functional level, he's 100% right. Now, on a mental level, sometimes you have to take yourself to the worst so you get comfortable being in the suck. There are moments, and I know he's got his methods for that, but in general, as a strategy over time, that is the winning method, mixed in with peak moments of performance, peak moments of suffering, to get comfortable there. And I really value that the mix there. And when we look at a hormonal level, that's synergistic with what the science says.
I know we went over.
I know we did.
But it's all good.
They're over there like...
They're about to try to eat and shit. No, but listen, I do want to talk about Metabolic Mentor University, and then also Nutrition Dynamics. Tell them where they can find, if they're looking for some type of intervention, some supplements, and also education, where can I go?
So I think it's important to say that if you are a coach or you are an athlete and you want to level yourself up, we have courses and education that will teach you how to optimize your systems to create the best outcomes. Or if you're, again, coaches in particular, if you want to get the best outcomes, learning how to optimize these different systems will take you on a whole nother level and give you a value and a utility that other people aren't thinking about yet, which is what allowed me to go from training to 8 businesses and everything that we've been able to accomplish, 120 staff now, and all that we do. And so if you're thinking about starting that journey, we have courses and full certifications anywhere, could get your start or to meet you anywhere in your journey. So you can check out metabolicmentoruniversity.com. You can check out some of my work at on Instagram, Vince_Pitstick. Or if you're looking for someone to get access to labs, access to supplements, to try some of these stuff out with your clients, we've got practitionerdepot.com where you get commissions on everything. Everything's there. We give you access. Practitioner Depot is like, if I do need a Dutch test, if I do need just a couple different blood markers and I can design my own lab work for really inexpensive and I don't have to wait on a doctor, and I want to look at some of these things, we have all of those tools and more. We have the entire verse of anything you could want to learn in the functional space. So you can check us out, practitionerdepot.com or metabolicmentor.com.
Well, I took the leap, and I'm actually a VIP
That's
client
right,
of
my man.
right here. So he's actually teaching me, and we do have the link set up in the description. So go ahead and check it out for Practitioner Depot if you want all of that. And I, again, like I said, I attest to it. We're learning a lot. I think this is going to level up my abilities as a
just
coach.
Watch. I'm calling it now. You're gonna see some things that he does, and you're like, how did he do that? Go to watch the stuff that I do, and you go, how does that dude doing that? I want you to, if you go to my Instagram, check this out. This is what blows people away. People don't ever believe that. If you go to my Instagram and you look at my outcomes, you're gonna think he did high protein, caloric deficits, and he beat we'll go with the word hell. He beat the hell out of them 6 days a week. The outcomes that are on my page, 90% of them, training 2 days a week and walking. That's it.
Wow.
It would be amazing would you see what you can do. And then we turn it up on them.
Of course.
But people are like, no, he's lying. He's giving them something he ain't telling us. No, I'm telling you, if you optimize functional, you can get so much more done with less. And then when you add your other skills to it, you become Superman. You can do anything you want.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take more of a tour around the house. You guys,
check it out.
If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow this man too as well. And thanks again. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.